Hey, Satori, I got a wisdom nugget for you. You ready?
Yeah.
You were inspiring me there with the talk about the two different sides coming together, and that kind of being like the essence of like that's kind of like how society always finds the ethical way forward, is to have those two sides at the table. Mm-hmm. Well, with that context, you reminded me of this guy I watch. I think his name's Anton. I gotta look it up. Anton Petrov. I put a link in the Discord, but he did this little bit on how they just did a experiment to show quantum domains, and this is definitely above my pay grade here. But he's getting into like talking about it's the yin and the yang talk, right? And it's like if you stare at that long enough, you see that there's a third aspect there, right? And it's that there's a boundary, and it's just the idea that like even the skin is an organ. It's and that boundary has a purpose, right?
Yeah.
And I think for some reason that's really important. That's a really important clue to pay attention from nature right now, as we're entering these times where everybody's like, really wanting to put up some kind of wall or boundary, or at least have some kind of check on who is in my space, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's easy to demonize that. It's easy to say that's wrong, and we all should just be, I don't know, singing Kumbaya and kissing together. I don't know. But the point is, we all do have our boundary, and if we all get to the table and talk about what those boundaries are, you start to see the two sides form, and you start to see a wall, and the wall is not to keep each other out. It's to filter the flow of who's coming in and out, so that you don't lose diversity. Otherwise, you just have one big blue or one big yellow. And if you want the two sides, you got to have that wall, but that wall has to be permeable. It has to have it has to have highways. It has to have ways to get through, and it has to have people that manage that.
For sure.
Just a little insight, man. And on that note, that's what buddies do for you, man. When you're in the trenches with people, having these kinds of conversations, you get a little boost of inspiration. Anytime you need, you go. I like the words you said, confidential or confidence. You start to build up confidence with a buddy. When those people aren't there, you can do it with a robot quite a bit, and it's kind of like throwing a baseball at a backstop. It doesn't mean you're any good at playing a game with people. It just means you're really good at throwing a ball now.
Yeah, and to further this
I
point,
like that.
Yeah, and to further this point about the buddy system, but also to boundaries, I think that's part of the first initial stage of like starting off as student or beginner's mind, is like you find out like what kind of mix you are of all these like different fluid roles, and where
That's right.
Yeah, and then like you seeing like how like just what I mean about having like confidence in eclipsing binary, like it's also I do this all the time with Curry, and everybody always kind of laughs because they see all my video editing. I have all these crazy visuals, and I do really cool with my visual editing. But every time there's a real discussion about like, artwork, visual artwork, I go, oh man, you got to tell Curry that, or oh man, like Curry's so great at doing the visuals, like blah blah blah. It's like to be humbled and to recognize, like his expertise. Like no, like. The real person you want to talk to is Curry. Curry is my source code for all of that. Like Curry's the one that I go to. Like you need to go to that guy. And that's part of like the buddy system. But also too, I think when we're talking about like sharing information and going through the project, like the NFT is a mandala is kind of a way to like show how that person with their own attention and time and work, but also based on where they fall on their curiosity of that crypto economic flower, that shows them like in the sense in the kitchen I was saying, it shows like your stripes in the sense of like, oh, I can handle this part of the station because I've done it before, or that I've done it in this context, that I've worked meaningfully at this DAO, and here's kind of like my credentials without being like a real credential. It's like, okay, like I've done this cool stuff before, and that's why like I could try to jump into this stream, and then like it's based on this overall like web of like intellectual / creative artwork that's like via stored roughly in the library / Creative Commons imaginarium pool. At least that's my thinking right now. And I think, because basically when I keep on talking about like the idea behind the fluid roles and like creative group dynamics, the different distinctions. But I think that's where we build up cards in like those categories. So like later you can find out too, like, because you may be like more like math dominant or systems thinking, and you're always thinking like, how does that creative person always comes up with those weird ideas? And it's also too like when I always have this thing, and I've been telling my friend from the Team Human thing, and it goes to that personal itch thing, is like, I think me and the Team Human guy like connected instantly on this part of the problem, because we've been personally scratching that itch of Robert Anton Wilson for a long time, even to the extent that like I recognize watching like looking at his stuff that he was sharing with me, I'm like, oh my god, you may like Robert Anton Wilson more than me. Like, oh god, please, like, I don't know if that's a wise thing to have someone that knows Robert Anton Wilson more than me. I'm usually the one always talking about Robert Anton Wilson in any group dynamics. So it was funny to see him, like how far along he's been working his own part of the personal itch of Robert Anton Wilson, to the extent that when we instantly started to talk meaningfully on this part of the thing, the feedback that I'm getting is like, oh great, I think this is actually a better working model to do the research. And I'm like, oh my god, that's exactly like the exchange that I want. And even to the extent that it was kind of funny to find out boundaries and group dynamics, like when I share that part of the stuff in tech, it's not alarming, but it was just, I just laugh at myself because Soul Sister's response when I was talking about source code in like the poetic sense was, oh, so does that mean we could compile it? Does that mean we could run it like a product? And I'm like, yeah, but that, like, in my orders of operations, that's not like the next sequence of like what you ask yourself. That's like step like 12, 13, 27. The first couple of steps is like, okay, what does this actually mean? The first couple of things that I sent him, he says, okay, I know what you mean by this, but like you use these two phrases and they're pretty like strange, and I think you mean this by it, but it could mean this, and like, can you clarify that with me? And those were the words that I changed like poetically to like signal to more of the group how they talk. And so to have someone recognize that instantly, it's very beneficial for me on that part of the task. But that comes like with time and stuff, and like and like how do you like get that by kind of being open and realizing that. But like it's like that's only one that we ever got to like that point, because like he's been probably studying Robert Anton Wilson longer than I have.
Is John?
Yeah, John.
I've been reading his stuff on, because he invited me to his app.
Yeah. That's what we're gonna do, the Imagination station. And so I'm gonna load some of the stuff I've been talking about. But yeah, go on.
No, yeah, I've been reading the stuff that's going on there. I feel like in Omega, like I'm reading, I'm captivated by everything that's going on. Because I haven't gone down that rabbit hole. I don't fully understand all the language.
Yeah.
Trying to make sense of it, but very, very interesting what he's doing with the mind mapping. Definitely something to look at.
Hey, that language thing keeps coming up, and that's something I expect to take the forefront more. I don't know if you guys have it seems like everybody's speaking different languages everywhere I go, right? In these crypto communities. So I'm thinking everybody probably has an intuition for the idea of context in how different languages, like once you go to a different language, the more you learn it, the more you might learn how the system it has for context is different than your native language. Meaning, like, some of the older languages, I think they called them high context languages in general. Meaning, like, everything you said had a lot of pretext or context to it. Yeah. So the words weren't that specific themselves. And then you get all the way to like English, and most English speakers know that there's like a lot of funny areas that exist as soon as you start to translate, because people in native languages, they'll always tell you, well, there's no word for that, like you guys don't have a word for that. And then I think a lot, like for English speakers, a lot of times we're looking at it like, well, we have a particular word for that, but that's not even a word in your culture. So I think the idea that that's happening on both sides kind of says that there's a lot of room for that in between, whatever you want to call it, buddy roll, right? Where it's like it's an interpersonal relationship where I kind of know what you mean because I know that twinkle in your eye, or I know what you mean when you start to fiddle with your fingers like that, because we've already developed enough context so that this area of language that's new, that we're navigating newly, we're making it up as we speak. It's lingo. They always have existed and they always will exist. And that is actually the spot of the arts, right? Like you're saying, like that is where those people always exist. So naturally they're always dealing with that. That's why they usually go to symbols, right? Because you can say all these other things. But if we could just keep in our mind that whenever we're doing this lingo game, a lot of times with branding it happens, or marketing, whenever we're doing this lingo game, especially in English, you could say I have source code, and I'm literally thinking over here that you already have code for this and we should get going on this now, right?
Yeah.
And you might be saying, like, I'm trying to say in an English lingo sense, many eons away from that computer programmer that knows binary, right?
Yeah.
You're basically saying that source code is it also is in a poetic way. It's a it's a codified version of what you observe, what you're observing right now. That's also source code. So that's like a more generalized idea of that. And when you get people together, I think what Seb was trying to do there was, I don't know what she's doing, but maybe she was trying to fish out, like, hey, who do we have at this table when they're saying source code? Are they all meaning the same thing? You know, you gotta wonder.
Yeah, totally.